The Drum Candy Podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into episode 5 of season 6 of the Drum Candy Podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Appreciate everyone's patience. We took a little bit of a break, a little bit of sabbatical to kind of regroup and get through some other projects. There's still a lot of other work happening behind the scenes, but I didn't want to let too many weeks go by without dropping this episode. This is one of our special episodes, 10 Reasons to Love the Great Jeff Watts. So once again, I had David Throckmorton and Thomas Wendt here in my studio, and we are going to dig through 10 of our favorite selections from the incredible modern jazz drummer Jeff Watts. Jeff Watts was born in 1960, and he's possibly one of the most influential jazz drummers of the past 40 years. He rose to prominence with the trumpeter Wynton Marsalis, and then he went on to play for many years in Branford Marsalis's quartet and in trio formats. So this is a lot of more modern jazz stuff, some of Tom and Dave and I's favorite music, so let's get right to it. 10 Reasons to Love Jeff Tain Watts. How do we begin with Tain?
Well, he's from here. He's from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He's a Pittsburgher.
I mean, I feel like incredibly influential. Is he possibly the last major modern jazz influence on the scene? I mean,
I feel like he's one of the big ones.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, when I think of drummers younger than, you know, not only like all these masters, but like these guys are all masters. But if you think of guys younger than, you know, Tony and Al Foster and DeJohnette, and I mean, there's so many great drummers, but like huge drummers. Like I think that next wave maybe being like, you know, like Tain and Nash and Kenny Washington and Bill Stewart. There's a ton of other, but Blade's super important.
Yeah.
I feel like you know.
I guess Tain fits in that before the '90s revival with Bill Stewart and
yeah, he's a little before those guys.
Well, he was kind of part of the first revival in the late '70s, earliest '80s. You know, because there were the other drummers like Lewis and Kenny were part of that too. They're actually slightly older than Tain, but only slightly. They're kind of
but close. You know,
very close. Yeah.
You know, there's a bunch of other guys that I'm not naming, but there's some lots of great drummers.
Totally.
Smitty and, you know.
Smitty, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thony Reedus, a bunch of those guys.
You
know.
Yeah.
It's before. I mean, obviously, I was a small child, so I didn't know any of this stuff was going on. But
Drummond, so I'm just thinking of more.
Sure.
You know, Victor Lewis is a little older.
Yeah, he was a little older. Than
a little older than those.
Ralph
guys.
Peterson, right?
Yeah, Ralph.
Yeah. Yep.
It's an interesting era because music was going in a totally different way back then. Things like late 70s, early 80s. What does everyone think of? You think of new wave music, you think of MTV.
Mm-hmm.
In the jazz world, it was a lot about fusion and then smooth jazz in the 80s. And all the guys we just mentioned were part of sort of the
straight ahead
sort
revival,
of kind of a revival in a way, or a revival from a media perspective.
I mean, I don't think of it like that, but
no, I know
I'm
what
just
you mean.
thinking of like,
you know,
right. Some Time magazine cover or something. Or,
no,
you know,
that's true.
What was that? I mean,
the Young Lions and
totally.
You know.
I remember Branford getting the gig with the Tonight Show band, but that was late
later.
80s. So
that was
like early 90s.
Was it?
Yeah.
So what was it that kicked it in the late 70s? Like, was there something that happened? Was there an event? I mean,
part of it was Art Blakey started hiring younger musicians again. The Jazz Messengers were a big deal, but then, I mean, the whole phenomenon with Wynton and Branford, you know, they were, you know, they came from this, you know, legacy jazz family in New Orleans, you know, their father being Ellis. And, you know, I mean, that whole family is very important musically. But I think, I don't know why, but they were kind of chosen by the media, Wynton especially, you know, as sort of like, wow, look at these young guys who are dressing in suits, trying to play music that's, you know, 20 years old at that point, roughly, you know. That was kind of like a media story, you know. They made it into it, you know. Not that those guys didn't deserve to be noticed; they're great players. So.
Yeah.
But I think to answer the question, I don't know. That's kind of how I think it was. It was just sort of.
Oh, that was because the Marsalis brothers were in Blakey's band around that time.
Certainly,
yeah.
That makes sense.
But before them, you know, he had hired Bobby Watson, James Williams, Dennis Irwin. You know, there were a bunch of other guys, you know, who were sort of part of that young line revival. Curtis Lundy, Mulgrew Miller.
Terrence Blanchard.
Terrence Blanchard. He was a little bit younger, but same era.
Young guys that became kind of part of this next wave.
Totally, and they, those guys were sort of part of that, and I think that, I don't know, it all sort of coalesced in that way back then.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in Modern Drummer, reading Modern Drummer in the '80s.
With like K-Wash? I mean, what stories?
Well, I mean, just saying you would, not even stories. I mean, you'd see an ad and be like, Jeff Tain Watts. I'm like, oh wow, this guy plays with Marsalis. I got to check this out, and or things like that. Like he was, that stuff was kind of a big deal,
It was.
So his first record was with Wynn, right? Is that his first credit?
I believe
that's
so.
the first of I know about of him.
I believe that's correct. We can ask him, but I think
his self-titled debut, right? Tony's on part of it.
Yeah.
So before we play the first tune, which I think is off of Standard Time Volume 1, I believe.
That sounds right.
Autumn Leaves.
Yeah, that's your pick. Yeah.
Oh, you're not playing the live version? You're playing the.
It's the studio record.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that set a new kind of like how progressive can straight ahead jazz be, like on like taking a prog rock kind of thing, like how mathematic and metric modulation.
And that was Tain's concept, that arrangement.
Oh, it's his.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
One of the things that I know from talking to people around here in Pittsburgh is that when Tain was young, and when he went to Duquesne University for a minute before he transferred to Berkeley, and he played around Pittsburgh a little bit, and a lot of people who I've talked to who heard him said, yeah, he kind of sounded like a rock drummer playing jazz back then.
Well, I know he came from all that funk groove music.
Totally.
It makes sense. His age. Like
Absolutely.
Hearing all the, like all the guys like older than me, like Greg Humphreys.
Yes.
Like those guys, or like Dwayne and these guys.
They remember, yeah.
Like Paul Thompson, I talk about this all the time. We talk about it too. It's like you get those guys, if you were to hang with them somewhere and some like early fusion music come on, they know that stuff.
They know it
the way I might know like the Electric Band.
Totally.
So they could hear a Jeff Beck record, or Billy Cobham, or Dreams, or on and on, Mahavishnu, let alone like the Bar-Kays, and do you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
Just bands,
Well, that's one of the coolest things about Jeff, I think, is that his musical influence is so broad.
Yeah.
And you hear that, I think, not only in his playing, but in his composing.
Writing, yeah, for sure.
Which I love. Yep. I love his musical writing.
Great, man.
It's really great.
He's amazing. I know he played like percussion,
percussion.
timpani and mallets and stuff like that. Yeah. And
so
I think he did a drum corps thing as well.
In the sound, consistently through this, different sounds, but almost never goes to the like bebop sound. There's always a earthiness to it. There's always a bit of like, he's always bringing a bit of funk and rock to it.
That's in
Totally.
there.
Always.
Totally.
Which is why I think I was so into it, because it was like, he's someone who's not trying to sound like Max Roach all the time.
Absolutely.
But still in that genre.
I think he was a gateway for a lot of young drummers in that way. A gateway to jazz.
Huge for me.
Absolutely.
Like, he was like a super, he's one of my favorite, 10 or 12 drummers in my life. I was already into Jack and Tony and Elvin and Roy and some guys, but when I heard someone younger than those guys playing music that was coming out, like I could buy a record that came out the same year I was listening to it. It was like, wow, this is going on right now.
Right now.
And that was big for me, but had nothing to do with a Pittsburgh connection or anything like that. It was just like, man, this stuff is great. And I think there was that, I always associate, my ear I could always hear this connection to Elvin and to Blakey with him. And I know there's obviously so many influences. And in his writing, I can hear all this other influence. Like, I'm getting long-winded. He's just great, man. And there was so much, like, I was talking about that pulling, and like, there's so much English on his, you know what I mean?
Totally.
He puts so much twists and really kind of has his own stuff, that's been really copied, like I think you said earlier.
Oh yeah, he's another like dangerous drummer.
Didn't you say to me once, when you heard me a long time ago before we really knew each other?
Oh yeah,
that you were like, oh, this guy's in the Jeff Watts.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't remember.
Was it the Grill?
I can't remember, but it was your band. All I remember is you had your white towel over your shoulder and you were taining it up.
Yeah,
you were scaring
and
people.
Probably not. Yeah, he was. I was still enamored with his playing and his musicianship and his tunes. He's great, man. So such a great musician.
He is. Very much so.
So the first one we're going to play is from Standard Time Volume 1. Again, the whole record I think is a masterclass. I think it can be dangerous. You can go kind of nerdy with it because all the arrangements are so complicated in a way. But I still think it swings and is unique. So this arrangement, I think it goes whole notes, half notes.
Yeah, it's like
odd
1, 2,
half,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
all
8.
the way up to 8,
Yeah.
and then it comes back
Yeah.
down faster. I don't know what the subdivision is. Maybe it's 6 to
I haven't heard this
5.
for so long.
I haven't heard it for a long time either.
But it's pretty killing.
Oh, yeah.
So from the top. And they're off. So it's 1 through 8, and then it goes 6, 4, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see this band? Because I know they
I never
went
saw this
through
band.
Morgantown, the Black Codes tour.
That's way before me.
Yeah, I remember my friend Ben Opie saw this band a few times, and he said it was just frightening.
I can't imagine. That'd have been terrifying.
Yeah.
Marcus Roberts, right?
Well, first Kenny.
Kenny Kirkland.
So that's Kirkland?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it's like, I haven't heard this for a long time, but it just sounds like Tain, man.
Yeah.
All the way back then.
Yep.
It just sounds, it couldn't be anybody else.
Right?
It seems like from a pretty young age, he had a very strong conception of what he wanted to do, and that's a great example of it. You know, like, I mean, he was pretty young at this
Yeah.
point. He was not, he was young.
I'd have been maybe still in college or fresh out of college at that
So
point.
this, what year was this record? I can't remember. But he was not. I mean, he wasn't in his 30s. You
Yeah.
know, that's young.
It's young.
And to have a very clear conception of how to do that, he was still developing, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. But that's impressive.
Yeah, I think
it's great.
I think I saw a recent interview where someone asked him about this, and I think he said it was something as simple as like, "Hey man, like this idea to this Autumn Leaves thing," and I think what he said was like, "Hey, let's try it tonight." And they just tried it, and it was maybe a little loose at first, and then they got right together, and it was just like you said, they're just off, man,
Yeah.
just burning.
And, I mean, nobody was swinging in 7/4 like that at the time, right?
Not back then.
I mean, and having it be pretty tight.
Oh yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like he had a very strong conception of how to do all of that.
Yeah.
His whole, I don't think of any of this stuff as math when I play like
Right.
polyrhythmic stuff. I don't make it too heady, or I mean, to learn it out of a book, you have to learn it correctly.
Sure.
But the goal is, for me at least, is to make it
Make music
musical.
out
And
of
a lot you start getting too deep into that stuff, it's like you can't play it with anybody because nobody has any idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
it. Right.
He's got a real beautiful command of really heavy rhythm, and
yes.
it never sounds like it's trying to be too smart to me. It always just feels like great music. I sometimes kind of compare him to Vinny in a way. Like they play different kinds of music, but they have that same real.
They can process
They
stuff.
can,
Yes.
they're
Absolutely.
the way they can just understand rhythm and numbers,
Complex stuff and make it really.
and make it feel great. And
I remember a number of years ago, Jeff was a guest with the Pittsburgh Jazz Orchestra, and I played half the concert with Christian McBride, and then he played the other half, and we played this tune of his, which is gorgeous, called "Of August Moon," and it's a challenging tune. It's in 5, and then it does all this interesting stuff. It's really rhythmically challenging, and so the band was, trying to get it together. And he said, let's play through that. And he had this great custom Tain groove that he played over it, and I'll never forget. The band was starting to kind of feel it, and he's playing this groove, and all of a sudden he just reaches up with his left hand, and it just starts playing quarter notes over it all. over the groove, and it was just like, woo. Like he understands this at a very, very deep level, you know?
Yeah, I think
it's not happenstance, you know what I mean? It's really cool.
You know, and I was so strong coming out of like Vinny and those guys, like growing up.
Sure.
Like, and I could hear like that depth of rhythmic vocabulary he had right away. I was like, oh, this guy's got some really
totally
heavy stuff going on.
Absolutely.
Like rhythmically.
Absolutely.
And it just felt so great. And I always like this sound. Whether some of those Winton records, he's playing a 22-inch bass drum,
big drums.
maybe even bigger. He might even have a 24 for some stuff. I don't know for sure.
Big drums.
But you can hear they're big, but they just sound great. You know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, and when you hear him play a 4-piece bebop kit, he just sounds amazing. Sorry, I almost swore. He just sounds incredible, man. You know?
I got to sound check his drums for the Modern Drummer Festival when he played the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like showed up. Everything was there. His sticks, his cymbals, everything was there. He showed up, you know, like an hour before the gig. So I got to set them up and play them. Like, they sound like drums. They didn't sound like, oh, I was like, what's the magic Tain thing? How's he get his toms to sound like that? It's just in his freaking hands. He was using those 5A Vic grip sticks with the red grip.
Oh, yeah.
The cymbals were just normal Sabians.
Yeah, they were just pretty normal Sabians.
And it was, so I was like, there it is. It's just him. He pulls out an earthiness from the drums that when I hit them, they just sounded like drums.
Yeah. Well, that's part of, you know, that magic of great artisticness is that some of it is just.
Hey, man, like Roger told me, ain't the horse, it's the jockey.
That's right. It's true.
Well, before we move away from that record, I think that's a masterclass. If anyone hasn't heard it, that whole record, all the arrangements are very sophisticated and deceiving. The way they play Cherokee, everything's backwards.
Yeah.
I don't think I can still follow the form because the whole thing is backwards.
Yeah, they were
on to something.
Oh yeah.
Let's go to something else. Throck, pick one of yours.
Let's do that tune from Bloomington. Let's do Citizen Tain.
Citizen Tain. So this is a trio?
Yeah, this is a live record called Bloomington.
Recorded in Bloomington.
Yeah. I mean, there was a kind of a companion film that came out when this came out called The Music Tells You, which, Tain, if you see this, if you have the whole video of this concert, it would make my entire life.
I know what you're talking about.
My dream is to see the whole concert.
The whole thing, yeah.
There's just like a few minutes of stuff, right?
They show all this footage of like little clips of this,
Rehearsing,
2 minutes here, you know. There's like footage of them playing a clinic.
Yeah,
but the stuff from the album, there's like little bits of it. But I'm like, man, I just want to watch. I want to see. It's one of my favorite records.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just wish I could watch the whole show.
I'd love to see that.
All right, Tain, hook us up.
And it starts with a drum solo, and then I think it's when I was like, you could let this run a little longer if you feel like it. If you're up for it.
For sure. Is this the one I thought? Yeah, listen to it. Here we go. This is Citizen Tain off of Bloomington.
bad stuff, man.
Now, I said it earlier. He's another dangerous drummer. He's like, oh, I can get away with playing a bunch of stuff if I just try to be like Tain. But he's listening, just like with Billy Higgins. It's still serving like this thing. He's not just playing drums, even though it's a lot of great drums.
There's a lot of drums.
Played.
But yeah, and those guys, man, they've played together so much. You know,
A lot of great rapport. Yeah.
I mean, they know how to play together. I've always been a huge fan of like a lot of chordless kind of groups, whether it's trio or quartets. And I just love that band. I mean, I love it with Kenny, you know, Branford's quartet, but some of the trio stuff, I just went crazy on those records. And, you know, whether it was Hearst or later with Reginald Veal or, you know, it's like, then they did the stuff with, when Revis came into the band as a quartet with Revis. I mean, Tain just sounds great with all of them.
Yeah. But
that connection that he and Branford had, it's just really pretty special. And man, the sound he's getting out of those drums, it's like you were saying earlier, you played a set that he played, like there's something really, really nice about the sounds he's getting out of those drums, you know? I had a Sonar Light kit at one point and it sounded...
Did you really?
Yeah, that yellow kit.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Totally forgot, yeah.
A Bob kit. And I could hear some of that kind of character of the sound and those toms, to those drums. I would get excited. Oh, it sounds kind of like Bloomington, you know. But it didn't sound like that, you know. he's yeah, I don't know. I could geek out all day on this, but
yeah, I mean, it's still kind of a brighter cymbal sound.
Yeah, I think the main cymbal on that's just kind of like a real run-of-the-mill kind of normal Sabian cymbal, like a smaller crash here, like a Roctagon on the right.
Yeah, right.
The left cymbal might have been an okay on that, but yeah, it's just kind of normal stuff for the most part, but he just made it sound so good. The floor toms on that were like mounted floor toms. We were talking yesterday about, we were talking, that was, you know, a big trend for a while. But I keep wanting to get a 13 for some of my kids. Like I have all these kits that were sent to, some were sent to me and some I bought. They had like 10 and 12. I never play the 10s anymore. I was one of second rack tom was a 13, but to hear that, like that 12, 13, 14, I think his other model was a 15, if I'm correct.
Wow.
But like, you get those kind of close intervals, like
Those
they're still all
tones,
tuned high, but and he does such cool stuff with the little melodic ideas with those tom-toms.
Absolutely.
That I've always been attracted to. Jack does that a lot too.
One of my picks has that same thing. It's really great, and he uses it beautifully.
And we were talking about it yesterday. Like I was like, man, I want to get into some of those sounds, but I wasn't even thinking about Tain. I was thinking about Jack, but like not hearing that just now, I was like, man, a lot of that comes from my love of Jeff.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Even though I've seen him, a lot of his favorite stuff, he's playing a four-piece kit as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll stop.
No, it's great. That's a great record.
That's kind of the opposite of Higgins, which is like here a lot.
Yep.
Tain is playing drums, but it still feels like an accompaniment in a way. Or, or it's like it's an equal kind of like
give and take.
Let me push you one way, or I mean, I don't know how to do that yet. That's what I'm still. How do you play drums and not have it just be a drum solo? Like, what does that take? You know, I can't do it. You guys can do it. I can't do it.
Man. Yeah, let's hear another one.
What do you got,
I'm
Tom?
excited.
How about we do UMMG?
Okay. What record is this off of?
This is from Trio GP. This is a trio record that's, I think, a really good and interesting record. This was recorded, I believe, in January of '88, and it features Branford and Tain again, but with the great master bassist Milt Hinton, who's known as the Judge, who started recording in the 20s. So it's really cool that they had him on this record, and he sounds incredible.
Sounds great.
He sounds really
and also,
great.
like, this is one of those records where the bass drum sounds real big.
Yes.
Like, it could be, who knows what it is. It could be a 22, it could be a 20, but it has like a... And it still sounds just amazing.
Amazing, yeah. So I chose this because Tain, I think if anybody who's heard him, I mean, he has such an identifiable sound and style, especially now that he's a bit older and he's matured as an artist. But in '88, he was still pretty young. But the solo that he plays on this, I think if you were to play this for a lot of, especially younger drummers today, they wouldn't be able to guess it was him. This is one of the most sort of, for lack of a better phrase, conventional solos I've ever heard him play, where he literally sounds like he's playing a lot of the hard bop language of the 50s,
Sure.
which he almost never really does. He comes out of that, of course. But here, I hear it as different. I'm very interested to hear what you guys think, so we can listen to it.
This is 4:15
Yeah,
into the track.
correct. Now, I think if you played that for a lot of younger drummers and they say, "Who's that?" they would never say Tain.
Yeah.
No, there weren't any telltale signs, really.
There were a few little things he played on the snare drum that might be him.
Yeah.
But he's playing, phrases that come directly from Max Roach, phrases that come directly from Philly Joe and Jimmy Cobb and that, It's interesting. I just thought it was an interesting
Yeah,
flip.
no, it's great. It's funny, like, it's reminding me, like, a lot of these we've done with all these different drummers. You hear someone else's pick, and it reminds you, like, oh, man, I'm going to have so much fun going back to listen to certain records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, this one
Like, I've heard this a ton, but I haven't heard it for a long time now. So it's like, man,
Interesting
I
sound.
can't wait to go home this weekend and listen to that.
It's really cool to hear him play with Milt Hinton. They sound great together. I mean, it's really swinging, but it's funny. I think when I first heard this would have been in the mid-late 90s, and I liked it. I thought it was really cool, but hearing it now, I can hear some of the youthfulness in his playing. You know what I mean? And that's not a slam at all. It's just part of the great development of it, But they play great together, and it's so different. Like, there's a couple tracks with Delbert Felix on this record, which you hear right away, like, wow, okay, that's different. It's still good, but it's the having the great Milt Hinton there is just an interesting factor.
Sure.
Do you think some of it was tongue in cheek? Like, let's play this one like it's. Or like
I don't think so.
No,
there's a lot of studio chatter on this record where you hear Branford and Milt and them just kind of talking. I don't think so.
I mean, not in like a negative way, but just like a playful way, like kind of like an inside joke. Like, we're gonna bebop this one. Like, it
That's a
kinda
good
almost
question.
has that kind of vibe.
That's a really good question. I don't know. We could ask Tain.
Yeah, I'd like to know because it
Branford,
feels
I
that
don't know.
way.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know.
The drums, funny because you mentioned I was listening for it. They sound like he's playing like a Sears Roebuck. Like, just give me the 12, 13, 16, 22 with the paper heads, and here we go.
Yeah.
They sound a little better than that.
I mean, it's different.
They sound good.
The bass drum is papery, and I mean, I love it. Everything.
Yeah, there's some weight to it.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I like the overall sound in this.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like they were in a big room, but with some baffles. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of has that sound to it. But
Yeah. It's funny too, man. Like, Tain has a thing using like small crash cymbals.
Yeah.
That I just love.
yeah,
I never do that. And I mean, I've tried a little bit when I was younger, when I was really like trying to sound just like him at times. But it's funny, man. A lot of my favorite drummers do that. Like Jack will have some smaller crashes, or
I never use small
Roy
cymbals,
will
yeah.
use some like regular
Totally.
crash cymbals. And I think a lot of jazz guys now, or like, the last 20, 30 years, think it just has to be like
These bigger cymbals.
2 bigger rise cymbals and set of hi-hats or
That's
whatever.
true.
But like, I love the way these guys use crash cymbals. Like,
They
Tain-
use them really well. Yeah.
So just looking at our list now, this is the first time I think when we've consistently chosen the same kind of band.
Interesting.
Branford, Winton, and then 2 solo things,
Yeah.
and then a Kenny Garrett and a Jerry Allen.
That's
So I
interesting.
think as for a jazz guy to be such a band guy, I think is cool. Like, he's
Yes.
so associated with these bands, and I think that's cool.
I mean, he's left Branford's been a while ago now, but like, there's such an output of music with those guys together.
That's
You
true.
know, whether it be on like Hurst's record or Jeff's records or you know, Winton's records with all those guys or Branford's or Kenny's. You know, like there's both Kennys, Kenny Kirkland, Kenny Garrett. A lot of those guys end up, you know, like you could be playing with Kenny Garrett and it's still Kenny Kirkland.
Right.
Or you could be playing with Hurst's record and it's Kenny Kirkland and Branford. And you know, it's like there's so, and also I think like those years of the 90s, late 80s, 90s, for me being a young guy getting into this music, there's a real nostalgia and like, and I was really developing at those periods. So like I have this quartet I lead in Pittsburgh, and we play a ton of music from that era. A lot of stuff from the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be stuff Tain wrote or Kenny Garrett.
John Scofield.
Or Scofield or Matheny. Like there's just, it's just a great period of music.
It was.
Dan Wilson and I talk about that all the time. There was so much
a great
good music
period.
then.
You know, one thing that's interesting about Tain that I'm just thinking about, you know, from his generation, he's one of the only drummers that didn't really come up playing with older masters.
Right.
If you look at like Lewis or Kenny, those guys, the first 20 years of their career, more than that, was playing with all of the masters. And Tain didn't really do that. He's played with some of them for sure. Like he recorded with Betty Carter, but I don't think he was ever technically in her band.
Right.
He was playing with guys in his generation. And I think that has made him the unique artist that he is. I'm not saying that Kenny and Lewis aren't unique, because they are, but like I'm just using them as an example. But Tain kind of developed almost on his own in a way, you know? He wasn't logging hours, you know, touring with Milt Jackson or Johnny Griffin or Hank Jones. Right. You know what I mean? He wasn't really doing that. So I think that had a unique effect on his playing and his composing. You know? I don't know. I'm just thinking about that.
That's probably why I love him so much, because I was a band kid. I like bands. And to see a young core group of guys playing this.
Yeah, I like that too.
You know, like that just felt like they're going for it. That's why I love his sound, because it's not that. He's not trying to play a role. Exactly. He is who he is.
He's doing his thing. Yeah, absolutely. I think the fact that his career just sort of took that path, I think only helped him develop into who he is, you know.
I mean, I think all these people we've done these on, and all my favorite artists in any genre of music, whether it's a rock band or it's not that I'm even a huge rock guy, but I like some rock music, or hip hop or drummers or jazz. It's like I always love stuff that sounds so specific to the player or the artists.
Oh yeah,
you know, like none of my favorite guys are really people that sound exactly like their hero. There's always a connection. You can hear somebody.
Of course.
You know, the first time I heard Wecko, I was like, oh, you can hear he's really into Gad. Right. But he didn't sound like him. He sounded like a new thing, you know?
Like an extension of it.
Yeah, I can hear Blakey, I can hear Elvin, like I said earlier, but Tain sounds like Tain.
Yeah. Well, I think from a historical perspective, that's one of my favorite things about him, is he really does sound like an extension of his heroes. And I think that's a pretty good compliment to pay someone, because you know, it's like, okay, yeah, you were into that, you checked it out, and then you put your thing with that. And now he's as identifiable as a lot of those guys. Yeah. You know, you hear a record with Tain, it's like, there's no question who that is.
No question.
You know? So that's a wonderful thing, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, when Branford did A Love Supreme,
I remember that.
Part of me was like, no. But then I heard it was like, all right.
You know, there's
no other band that could have done it.
No, it's great, yeah.
Before he put that Footsteps of Our Fathers record out, there was an earlier version of that same group, well, not Joey, with Kenny playing Love Supreme. It's like a shorter version.
No,
really? Yeah. And there was this record, it was called like Red Hot and Cool or something like that. And it was like this album with like people mixing up different styles, and I'm not even sure, I can't even remember, I have it.
Yeah.
But like disc 2, I think you could buy it as a 1 disc or a 2 disc. There was like a bonus disc, and there's like maybe like a 15 or 16 minute version of the quartet playing Love Supreme from like maybe like 7 or 8 years earlier.
So like early 90s.
Yeah. That. Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'd already heard them do it.
Okay.
And then I heard them put the record out again. I was like, oh, now I hear what they're doing with it now.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a great thing, though. I mean, they all sound great on that, but I thought Tain played great on that.
Man, he sounds so great. That whole record too, man. The Ornette stuff and the modern jazz quartet thing. That stuff is amazing.
Yeah, it's really great.
Freedom Suite.
Yeah, right. Forgot about that.
Do you, Throck, you want to go to the Jerry Allen record now? Or something else?
That's fine. Yeah, sure.
All right. The song is Night's Shadow. I do not know this record.
I remember being at a record store.
I know this. Yeah.
Probably right around when this came out. And I used to have a job at a national record mart. And, you know, the reason I had that job was just to work 20 hours a week and be able to get the discount. And I'd drive around to all the other stores around Pittsburgh that had a better jazz selection and buy records. And I remember I was at the South Hills Village store looking through, and I picked up this record and turned it over, and I was like, oh, wow. Jerry Allen, Tain, Kenny Garrett, Robert Hurst, Marcus Belgrave. I was like, this is...
What is this, 90?
I'm bad with dates. I don't remember. If I had to guess early...
I would say 92, maybe.
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Maybe earlier, maybe 90, 91.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
But, you know, I've become kind of I always liked Jerry's playing, and she's such an amazing musician. And
for sure.
I've become a little fanatical in the last 5 years or so about the trio she had with Paul Motion and Charlie Hayden. Like, I really love that group. And then, so it's nice to go back for me to check out this record and hear all these other musicians I love playing with Jerry. And
she did a lot of really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, with so many different musicians.
And play with so many,
So
play with
many
Ornette, play with, all these great drummers. She worked with Tony's on her records, and Jack. And
she had a pretty amazing career, man.
Yeah.
It's a shame that, we lost her so young, but man, she did a lot of interesting stuff.
She's phenomenal.
She's on a ton of records that were only issued in Japan and stuff like that. I mean, all kind of interesting stuff, man. Yeah, I'm glad you chose this.
So this is the first tune off the record from the top. I just thought it was a nice piece of music.
That's high level. Goodness.
Jerry sounds so nice. I love that too, man.
Yeah. It's great to listen on so many records like this that he's on, how he interprets the tunes, the melodies. That was a great example. The way, even the beginning where he was going between the hi-hat and the cymbal.
That couldn't have been charted out, right?
No way.
No. That's his ears just telling him what to do.
And there's this thing, they go into this thing, it sounds like they're playing in this thing in 11 or something, and I haven't heard it a lot for a long time, but they just navigate that stuff so naturally.
Yeah, they're all of them are great
at it. It just flows so beautifully.
Yeah, it's really, like you said earlier, he's great at making the complex sound. So it just works so well.
Yeah,
it's really, in some of that music, it's really hard, man.
Yeah,
and and
he's playing all around it. There's a lot of drums happening.
Yeah, that's one of his superpowers, man.
Yeah, no, it kind of is. Yeah, he can play a lot of drums, but it just works.
And his I'm repeating myself, but his understanding of rhythm, just in general, there's this blank canvas. He fills it up with all this color, but he always knows how to navigate the turns and the twists, and just without being like a prog drummer, being like, and here's one, everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's this group of 4, 4, and 3. It's never like that. It's just and it made me realize, I think, a lot at a younger age, like it can be hard for people you're playing with if you're playing hard music.
Sure.
Like you said that once, like, how do you get to play like that? It's like, well, you can try, but sometimes people are just, they're like, dude, you're not giving me any help. But I mean, he's playing with amazing musicians, and I get to play with some great musicians who I can do that with. But sometimes it's like, man, I better try, you know. It's making me sound like I'm saying he's not helping, but they make it sound so like it made me not be afraid to want to play like that because they make it sound so easy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You know, well, I think a lot of people, they get scared, like, oh, I got to count, I have to make sure
It's hard. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Because good musicians, if you're listening, like, they're going to help you feel it out. And sure, this stuff gets hairy, all of it.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure there's stuff on some Bradford records that I've listened to a million times that I just know, I've just memorized what it sounds like, what they're doing. But they could have got lost and fallen apart and found their way back.
Totally.
Just like any of those great groups that really push the boundaries of what they're going for something.
I've noticed in my dealings and interactions with Tain is he has that kind of attitude, like with that stuff. It's like, yeah, let's play it, let's go for it.
Yeah.
If it gets screwed up, okay, laugh at it and keep going.
I mean,
You know,
that goes back to him playing music with his peers. He doesn't have someone who's going to fire him.
who's going to go, no, exactly. No, that's true. I think that's a great
But
point.
I guarantee you, he knows how to read the situation and know what to do in whatever situation.
Totally.
Because I've heard him play so simply and beautifully as well.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
So,
I'm going to go to the Dark Keys. This was the record that changed my whole concept. Similar to what you're saying. It was like, oh, this can go real intense and be real advanced and also very soulful.
Yeah.
And I think it's the title track. I believe, again, they're toying with where the one is. I think they're playing it backwards at the beginning. This changed everything. It sounds like his drums are going to just explode to me. I love it.
Small kit on this one, too. Small drums.
It's a 9-minute track we could just sit here and listen to.
That's Jeff Wash right there, man. Yes, indeed.
John, this guitar player in town we all play with, John Shannon, he told me a story that from a couple of years ago, Branford was in town working on like some movie or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
And I guess he went to one of the first Con location. And I think John was saying to Branford, like, man, I love the Dark Keys so much. And Branford's like, oh, you like the crazy records. like I'd be curious to hear what
That's interesting.
You know, like Branford thought of this period as like the crazy stuff.
That's funny.
At least that's what he said that to him that day.
Yeah, that's
like,
funny.
You like the wild ones,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's got an attitude.
Oh, it's a great record.
But it's
man.
still like it fits all the. I mean, it swings. It's soulful. But some of it's like Elvin and alternative rock somehow got mixed together.
Yeah.
You know, like what is happening there?
I always hear a serious R&B funk influence in his playing, and I think that goes to like the era he grew up in. You know, but you kind of that's always there, which I think is awesome. It's part of his great personality musically. You know,
We have a few more. Tom, let's go to. Did we do Attainment yet, or you want to do Wooden Steps?
either one. It's up to you. What do you feel like?
I mean, I think we're in since
How
we're in.
about Attainment?
Okay.
Actually, that'll be a nice programmatic.
Yeah.
So this is from his Columbia record, Citizen Tain, which is from 98, I think, 97?
98 or 99.
Yeah.
I was on the road when this came out. Not to
No,
steal
go
your
ahead.
thing. I was playing a gig with Maynard's band. I want to say it was near Scranton.
Mm-hmm.
And PT and I went to this record store in that little town.
And it was
And
there?
I walked in. I didn't even know it was coming out. Because, this is like,
Yeah.
nobody was online and
Yeah,
stuff.
right.
Like that. Nobody had cell phones. And I went into this store, and I heard some music turn on, and I was like, instantly I was like, that's Tain. I'm like, what is this? He's like, oh, this is this. We just got a promo of this today. This is Jeff. What? I was like, can I buy that off you? The guy's like, oh, I can't sell this. It doesn't come out for a couple weeks. I was like, dude,
Sell
I'll
it
give
to
you,
me.
Like, what do you want for it? You want $50? I'll buy it from you right now.
Wow.
He's like, I'm sorry, dude, I can't do it. I was like, man, you suck. You don't want this album. Like, I know
Sell
you're
it
playing
to
it
me.
right now, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, you don't care
this
about
is for
this.
me.
Yeah.
I want this. So back to your tune.
So
I did
this
stay in the store for like an hour, listen to the record.
I'm
though.
sure you did. I'm glad I wasn't that poor cash clerk who was.
Yeah.
So this is his intro to his tune Attainment, and I picked it because he's playing with mallets, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about the soloistic quality and the different intervals and tones of the drums, and I love the sound he gets. He's playing with mallets. It definitely evokes Elvin, which is a huge influence on him, but I think if you are even a little familiar with his style, you would know it's him because it's so we can check it out.
All right, from the top, Attainment.
Beautiful soprano sound, man.
Oh, amazing.
And it's funny, like like I said, I mean, there's obviously a lot of influence there, but his phrasing is very much his own, and the way he uses the bass drum is very personal. I think that's kind of what I hear, But I love the sound he gets and the shape of that and everything.
You mentioned bass drum. He might have been the first guy where I like paid attention to the bass. Like he made the bass drum a thing for me in this genre. Like the sound of it.
You
and
know what,
everything.
man? Like, now that I think about it, because we're talking about sound, like, from record to record, the drums and the number of drums can really dip. The tuning can really deviate, and change. But you always know exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's
interesting.
tuning high or low,
Yep.
big bass drum, small bass drum. It's like, I know instantly.
Yeah.
You know?
His playing definitely transcends the
Like, if I think of
instrument he's
Bill
playing.
Stewart,
Yeah.
I kind of have this sound, like
the same
the sound is
sound.
kind of.
Yes.
I mean, sure, there's records it's higher, there's records it's a little lower, but Tain's thing is really broad.
Yeah.
I'm talking about two guys that I love.
Of course, yeah.
But how do you mean about the bass drum? Anything specifically?
It was just like the first time I noticed it as like a presence on the record, like the sound of it, because it wasn't like bop tune, like tonal. There's like a there's like a trashiness in a good way to it. You know, like it has like a presence to me.
Well, he also a lot of times he plays it. I mean, he plays it prominently. It's a big part of what he does, which I love about his playing. And I think the way he plays it, there's just again, you can't put it into words, but there's just a way he plays it that to me it's like, there he is. That's that's him signing his name a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I don't know if it's because I saw him play like a 16 or something. Like I just hear like that's what a 16-inch bass drum would sound like if you beat it up. Like that's like Tain to me kind of represents, even though that he's obviously not doing that, but like that just kind of overdriving the bass drum in a certain way.
Yes. That's part of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, really cool. Man, there's so much good stuff. We've got
two
more for you.
Yeah, let's. I have one from the same record. It's the first tune off of Citizen Tain.
I almost chose Impaler.
Let's do the Impaler. I was just thinking, like, he writes so beautifully.
It's so great. Yeah.
I remember being excited that Wynton was on this to hear Wynton play with him.
He sounds great.
Again, Wynton sounds so darn good.
Yeah.
And like, I think the time in between, at least on record that I know about them playing together, there was a little space. And like a lot of what Wynton was doing was some different stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was cool to hear them playing again. It just sounds like they sound together.
Totally. I agree.
The Impaler.
This is a great tune.
I must have seen you shortly after this record came out.
Maybe.
That's what it makes me think of. Whatever band you were playing with, it was this kind of energy. Whatever that would have been. Who knows?
I don't know. Man, it's funny, man. We just recorded 2 of these in a day today. We did Billy Higgins earlier. It's like some of that comping reminds me of Higgins sometimes, man.
Yeah.
You know?
He wrote a tune for Higgins.
Yeah, I know.
Laughing and talking with Higgins.
On Bartok.
On
yeah,
Bartok.
yeah.
There's a bounce to his eighth notes, which I was going to say earlier. It's like it's a more skippy eighth note.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And that's like, back to the sound thing, like, sometimes he's playing that, I'm not trying to geek out too hard. I don't know all of his gear always or all his cymbals, but he plays that 120-inch OK sometimes. Man, he gets such a woody,
beautiful sound.
Woody thing, sound of that cymbal. So it's just not always easy to get. It's him.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah.
He could get it out of a
out
of a dumb cymbal.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, one of the things for this period, like the records he made, this one, Bartok, there are a couple others under his own name. It reminds me a lot of Tony's quintet from the 80s. In that, I love the writing and the playing, and like Tony's group, it's like he's kind of the only person that can really play those tunes.
Yeah,
like you could play them and it would be okay, but it's so much of who he is. And I feel like a lot of Tony's tunes from that, you know, those those Blue Note records from the 80s. I love those tunes, but I wouldn't dare play any of that music because it's just like his playing is such a part of it.
You would have to imitate him, or
that's what I'm saying.
Completely different arrangement.
You know,
totally, yes.
Like this quartet, we play a tune off of Songbook.
Yeah,
we play a song off of Citizen Tain. And it's so hard not to just want to sound just like him, you know.
That's what I'm saying.
And in the same group, we'll play some tunes that Bill Stewart. So I'm like, I just feel like I'm playing my, and I'll complain to like you, and then everybody's like, oh, you just sound like yourself.
Yeah.
But I know where it's coming from.
And
I know
that's
what
okay.
I'm stealing. You know.
I hear you. I know that feeling, but I think that's fine.
I mean, they all do it too. I'm not embarrassed.
And it's art. It's supposed to affect you.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't love something and be like, okay. No, that's a part of who you are, man. I think almost everybody's.
Well, it's funny, man. Like sometimes I'll play a certain thing on any given night, and Paul will look over, and I'm just like, he knows. He knows I just played this Tain thing, you know.
Yeah.
Or we played this Keith Jarrett tune a couple weeks ago. This is funny. This tune called "The Cure," and Scott started playing a certain way on this ballad. I'm like, oh, it sounded exactly like Branford. And I just started laughing, and I was like, okay, Branford. And he looks over, and he's like. But he knew. He
it's
knew.
okay.
And it was almost like he was glad I knew, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
absolutely.
I hear you doing that thing.
Yeah, I'm sure, you know, I think if you listen to any great musician, you can hear the influences.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes it great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
totally.
especially if you're going to play their music, why not?
Of course.
You know?
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff from this period reminds me of Tony's group from the 80s because I love the music, but it's so personal to them, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I've got one more. Tom has one more, and Throck has one more. So my last pick is Bullworth off of Requiem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I haven't heard this in ages.
Yeah.
This was my band. So this band and the Josh Redman Quartet and the Kenny Garrett group, like those were it. That's all I wanted to listen to. Again, I like bands, and they're playing like an odd times sort of funky thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Super cool.
Yeah, I remember buying this when I was out with Maynard's band too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a big deal when this record came
Yeah, I
out.
was
Yeah,
excited.
I remember.
This was back when jazz artists had like major publicity campaigns.
Yeah,
and
and these
stuff.
guys were on Columbia and Sony.
Yeah.
and stuff,
Yeah,
you
the
know.
labels actually were supporting them.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And did you guys see what was that show that David Byrne had?
Night Music.
Was that?
I mean, not Night Music. Sessions at 54th.
Oh,
Yeah,
this band
they were
played.
on this. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I never saw that.
Playing this stuff.
They debuted
Really?
a lot of this material
Man, I
on
never
that
saw
show.
that.
yeah, it's good.
Wow.
It's super good.
That's very cool.
So here's Bullworth. And it's not all 7. Like that's what I loved about it. There's little turnarounds. Like, oh, they went to 4 or something there.
I'm glad you played that because I love how he plays more funk oriented stuff. He has such a unique way of doing it. Like that couldn't be anybody, you know?
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I gotta find that video.
I'd love to see that. I've never seen
I
that.
had a VHS of it years ago.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about it until you said it. I was like, I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Man, I never saw that.
It
It's
might
really
be on
cool.
YouTube.
Josh Redman played with the Mood Swing band.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some cool stuff on that show.
Yep. Tom, Wooden Steps.
Oh, yeah.
This was going to be one of my picks too, for different reasons. So this is kind of a 2-parter.
Okay.
For me, it's just the groove.
Well, I chose this for 2 reasons. First of all, it's the groove, and this tune kind of goes between Tain, like we were talking earlier about how a lot of these greats have their own way of playing different Afro-Cuban, Afro-Caribbean grooves. So Tain has such a great way of playing like a songo, his own sort of way. And this kind of goes between that and swing. But the other reason that I chose this was we're going to hear a clip from the piano solo, Kenny Kirkland's piano solo. This is from the Songbook record, which is some of my favorite Tain, personally. And what's cool about this is in the piano solo, it starts with this great songo groove, and he's doing his thing. And then at one point, he tries to switch to swing, but Nat Reeves and Kenny Kirkland don't really go with him, and he beautifully sort of just kind of slides back in to the groove, and he does it in the most musically cool way. And I chose it because when you're playing creative improvised music, this kind of stuff happens where someone says, "Hey, let's turn left," and everyone goes, "Nah, man, let's stay straight," you know? And that's okay. It's part of the process, you know?
Yeah.
But it's all about how you deal with it, you know? Filoni was Monk's great quote, you know, if you play a wrong note, it's the note after it that makes it wrong, you know? So it's like, what do you do when one person goes, you know what I mean? And it's a great example of his, you know, great artistry in making stuff work. So
I'm wondering if it made the record and no one noticed.
Good question.
Or if,
I bet they just didn't get
they
it.
probably didn't even
care
care
at all.
Man, the spirit
my
was
guess.
right. The spirit was right, and they were like, "Yeah, print that." You know?
Go, yeah, I'll talk after.
No, go ahead, play it.
3:15. I want to play the beginning. No, we'll go right to there since we're fresh on that. So 3:15. Here we go. I want to check the tempo. I think they're like 20 clicks
faster. Yeah.
So here's the beginning.
Well, you know, it's funny about this groove. Tain almost always, I mean, he really plays way on top and pushes it, but it's actually it's part of the package.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it has a great effect on the music.
Totally.
Like that's a great example of a tune that
It just goes.
push it, you know, and he's so great at it.
That's why this groove is so like. This is one of those tunes I think you can't do it. It's him.
It's him
because of that groove, and it is because he's like
Yeah.
pulling them the entire time.
Yep.
It's like, come on, let's. And it's like, it doesn't. I mean, yeah, it's songo, but is it like what?
But
what
that's the
is
beauty.
it?
It kind of is, but it's his take. Just Billy Higgins' take on something. You know, it's great, man. And then when they swing, it's like woo! It just you get that like feeling like you're launched into outer space.
Yeah.
You know, it's great.
Yeah.
I never noticed the tempo shift until today when I was listening to your spot and my spot. I was
Wow.
like, damn, that's not just a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of it.
But the beauty of these guys is that I mean, I'm almost positive, like what you said earlier, they probably listened back to this and maybe they heard some of these little imperfections, but the spirit is right.
Yeah.
And that's what you print.
I mean, that's a classic
You
track.
always go with the one that has the spirit. No matter who screws up, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
It's about the feeling.
It's easy,
and the
I think,
spirit.
when you're the one playing something to be like,
Oh, totally.
I messed
Absolutely.
that up. But it doesn't matter. No one cares.
Right.
It's just
Right.
Does it feel good? Does it sound good?
Yep. If that spirit's right, that's all that's for this
Yeah.
music. That's what matters.
And it's good to kind of try to remember that because it's going to make you play a little more loose, have a little more looser attitude, and be willing to exchange. You know.
Absolutely.
I wish more like rock bands would have that mentality.
Yeah.
And not be so caught up in playing it correct and playing the click live.
Yeah, the
all
click
the
is a big
time,
big part of that.
I think you can really squash a lot of great music with that, having that kind of like, oh no, it's like no.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Throck, we got one more from you.
This is a little odd one.
Beats Remark.
It just happens to be last. Like just ended up being the last one. This is just another tune of Branford's Trio with Robert Hurst and Tain from their record, The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born.
I remember this
I think
one.
this might be the last tune on the record. There's 2 tunes out of the last 3 tunes where he's playing a ton of brushes. But as I always say, he's playing those nasty Tain brushes. You know, like it's just like some other stuff. And like a young me, I remember, again, it was like that same feeling I got from all his playing. But when I really got into this record more and more, I remember just being like, wow, you can play brushes like that? Like, okay, that's interesting. And it's like that, again, that command of rhythm and subdivision. He's so good at being able to just come up with interesting phrases and still have this I can still always feel this nice quarter note related
Pulse,
to all of it. The pulse, the easier way to say it.
No, I hear you.
Tom's way better at simplifying my horrible talking, but it just, the pulse is always there, you know? So it's just some cool, nasty brush playing.
There we go. Beats Remark.
That's beautiful.
You know, it's not your normal kind of brush playing you learn, but I always just thought it was really personal to him.
Totally.
You know, I mean, it reminds me of Elvin to some degree, but in some ways not at all, you know? And you know, as a younger drummer, I was just so enamored with Jeff's playing. It just, there was a lot of like, what he gave me was a lot of like, yeah, man, you can play like this. You can try this. You can do this. And it's like, man, okay. I got to not worry about just, not that I ever was really a play it safe kind of guy, but yeah, it just felt like I was being encouraged and like he was opening some doors that I could walk through, you know?
Yeah.
Some great music. So you got to go play 2 gigs tonight.
Yeah.
Are you going to end up sounding like Tain all night?
It's possible I might be thinking about some of this stuff. We'll see. Hopefully I'm just using my ears and trying to play musically, you know?
That's it for this week's episode. Once again, thank you for your patience while we got this episode out. Probably won't be back weekly because I have a lot of other stuff in the works, but I'm going to try to do it every other week. We've got some guests coming up. I've got some more kind of gear talk things happening. If you want to reach me, hit me up at drumcandypodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit the IG DMs for Drum Factory Direct, or I am at Mike Dawson Drums. Also, drop us a review. If you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to the show. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.